What if I told you that Tottenham's tactical switch to a five-man defense wasn't just a mistake, it was a disaster waiting to happen? Let's dive into the Burnley versus Tottenham match that ended 2-2 and uncover why this decision left fans fuming. The reason why this match ended 2-2 is quite simple. Tottenham lacked stamina, and that usually doesn't bode well, especially in away games. Burnley, on the other hand, has gone unbeaten in their last 3 matches, and their attacking energy likely troubled Tottenham. So, what was the most critical aspect of Tottenham's performance in this match? The most obvious and crucial thing was the structural change they implemented. They shifted to a formation where Van de Ven sometimes transformed into a left-back, pushing Jed Spence forward. That was the setup in the first half. Before crossing the halfway line, the defensive organisation resembled a traditional backline, but once Van de Ven moved into the centre, Spence dropped back, forming a 5-man defence. This 5-man defence persisted even after half-time adjustments. Facing Burnley with a 5-man defence naturally brought Ruben Amorim to mind, as he often employs this tactic against weaker teams. But the problem was, Tottenham's 5-man defence didn't improve much. They conceded their second goal due to defensive errors, with defenders looking like cones on the field. Offensively, they weren't dominant either, only taking the lead through a set-piece. Burnley's 2 goals, however, were much cleaner compared to Tottenham's. Interestingly, both Manchester United and Tottenham recently drew 2-2 with Burnley. However, there's a difference. Manchester United's draw under Darren Fletcher was with a 4-man defence, while Tottenham's was with a 5-man defence. Later, it turned out that the referee's mistake cost Fletcher's team the win against Burnley. Martinez was deemed not to have fouled, and the penalty should have been awarded, meaning Manchester United should have won 2-3. Amorim's fans would have had to swallow that. The key point is that Manchester United scored 2 open-play goals against Burnley with a 4-man defence, while Tottenham relied on 2 set-pieces. This shows that switching to a 4-man defence improves attacking options, whereas a 5-man defence reduces them. Watching Tottenham play with a 5-man defence got me increasingly frustrated. Proof that my critique isn't personal against Amorim, but based on the situation. If you switch to a 5-man defence and perform worse, it's natural to get angry. You'd think, why make such a foolish decision? When you see such poor decision-making, it's hard not to feel frustrated. If you're not up to par, if you're not as skilled, and if you're bound to lose, that's one thing. But to make things worse by switching formations is unacceptable. Switching to a 5-man defence, just like Amorim, Tottenham dominated the stats, but didn't win. The same structure applied to different teams with similar traits. Even if Tottenham's midfielders had more stamina than Amorim's Manchester United, fatigue still rendered the 5-man defence ineffective. Amorim's slow build-up style drained Manchester United's energy mid-season, leaving them with nothing to show in any competition. Similarly, Tottenham, already overworked in the first half of the season, suddenly switching to a more stamina-demanding structure is only going to make things worse. In a 3-4-3, players are spread out. Only the defensive line is compact, while the forward line is stretched. This requires even more stamina. What happened? The defensive and midfield lines were too far apart, leaving space for opponents to exploit. Even if Amorim had replaced his midfielders, the continuous use of 3-4-3 drained them, proving ineffective. Much like Chelsea's decline after winning the Premier League, struggling in multiple competitions. Tottenham is now in a similar situation, overburdened with fixtures, fatigued, and switching to a 5-man defence, making matters worse. Some might argue that this was Tottenham's first game using 3-4-3 and they need time to adapt. But that's nonsense. A 3-4-3 formation should yield immediate results. It doesn't require adaptation time. It's the most straightforward tactic for a coach with decent knowledge and a team that isn't too tired. If adaptation is needed, it's either because the coach is clueless or insists on slow build-up play. Amorim, in this regard, is particularly clueless. Even more foolish is switching to 3-4-3 when your team is already exhausted. Thomas Frank in this case is even more clueless than Amorim, which is truly unfortunate. However, Frank isn't as annoying. He's equally clueless but doesn't pretend otherwise. Let's revisit this topic and clarify further. Why is it that if your team isn't too tired and your coach is somewhat competent, switching from a four-man defense to a five-man defense will work? I'll use Antonio Conte's Chelsea in 2016 as an example. Why did they successfully switch to five at the back? Why shouldn't Tottenham do it now? The reason lies in having the right purpose and intent. If your team struggles with ball control and facing compact defenses, if players lack awareness in these areas, as Chelsea did under Mourinho's influence, over time, they lose the ability to play short passes and break down defenses. Even when trying to build up play, they're prone to losing possession and conceding counterattacks. If your forward line, spread wide, still struggles to break through, why keep so many attacking players up front? It's better to add an extra defender and switch to 3-4-3. This is a straightforward approach. Players spread out, play faster, and rely on long balls instead of short passes. It's as simple as taking medicine when you're sick, direct and effective. But you need to see the illness before taking the medicine. If your players are fast and energetic, the tactic works even better. Coupled with a single focus on domestic leagues and players of a certain caliber, you're on your way to winning titles. Of course, it also depends on opponents not sitting back. Chelsea struggled in the second season when teams adjusted. Still, 3-4-3 remains effective when used sporadically. This is a fundamental principle. Amorim likely used this logic in Portugal, but it only works if applied correctly. Frank's Tottenham, however, isn't suited for this. They're not struggling due to poor build-up play. They're fatigued from multiple competitions and can't play quickly. Switching to 3-4-3 under these conditions, shouldn't Frank consider slowing things down instead? It's putting the cart before the horse. Even more absurd is that after switching to five at the back, they're now trying to play slow, build-up play. This is nonsensical. With five defenders, three centre-backs and two wing-backs, the width of the pitch doesn't allow all five to line up horizontally, creating positional and spacing issues. The wing-backs must push forward, leaving the central defenders unsupported in organising play from the back. This system is hard to sustain, with gaps appearing everywhere. If you're playing five at the back with wing-backs pushed forward to attack, slow build-up play makes no sense. The wing-backs, being closer to the opponent's pressing network, lack the space to exploit. The purpose should be to break through, not play slowly. Five at the back can't sustain slow build-up play. It just leads to constant mistakes, as Tottenham demonstrated. Their second goal conceded was due to a defensive error in organisation. Tottenham's goal wasn't from slow build-up play either. It came from a counter-attack after winning the ball in midfield, leading to a corner. Ultimately, scoring requires speed. But after exhausting themselves in the first half of the season, Tottenham couldn't maintain their pace in the second half, allowing Burnley to overtake them. Substitutions came too late, only starting in the 78th minute. Their equaliser came from a last-ditch effort by a young defender, which isn't sustainable. Their late push relied on the stamina of younger players, a recurring theme in 3-4-3, where fast attacking points are crucial for comebacks. Frank's Tottenham keeps returning to the question of stamina. So why did Frank switch to 3-4-3? It didn't seem like they lacked midfield options for a 4-2-3-1. They even had Archie Gray on the bench. The starting midfield setup could have easily accommodated a 4-2-3-1 without using Gray. They had two additional attacking options. Switching to 3-4-3 seems like a desperate move, unrelated to squad issues, just a trial to see if it works. Given their recent poor form, Frank had no choice but to slow things down, further exposing his lack of tactical understanding. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what adjustments he makes now. Tottenham's season is essentially over due to their first half exhaustion. The only upside to this chaos, it gives me more to talk about. Things are likely to get worse. They might barely qualify for the Champions League, enter playoffs, and face even more fixtures. There's no way out now. The best case scenario? Losing in the playoffs eliminates them from multiple competitions, allowing them to focus solely on domestic leagues in the second half. As for a managerial change, Bringing in someone like Carlo Ancelotti to implement slow build-up play might improve stamina, but results may remain inconsistent. However, seeing how Michael Carrick managed Arsenal, there's still a way out, playing a four-man defense with slow build-up, but quickly finishing attacks with long shots or direct play. This balanced approach avoids prolonged possession or excessive pressure, maintaining around 50% possession while playing quickly when crossing the halfway line. It's unclear whether Frank has Carrick's tactical acumen. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to comment, like and subscribe to show your support and love. Goodbye.